Welcome back everyone to episode 4 of season 2 of the obscure Game Faceoff. Out of the 19 games reviewed so far, only 3 were awarded with either the hidden gem or the hidden stinker. How many more obscure games do I have to endure to give all 5 awards out? Let's find out together, shall we? Starting with our very first game, a fan-made remake of a classic, Asteroids. This game is similar and clearly inspired by one of the earliest and most significant shoot-'em-up games of all time, the Atari Asteroids game, where you just control a ship that shoots asteroids. Very simple stuff. Despite this game being made decades later from the OG, it plays a lot worse, though it has some interesting features over the original. In this game, you start with 3 HP and could release a huge AoE attacks that destroys asteroids around you at the cost of 1 health. Now this may all seem fine and dandy, but I did say that this played a lot worse than the original, and that's because as the game progresses and becomes a lot harder with more asteroids to destroy, the game suddenly lags to high heaven, to the point where it's not even playable anymore. I like the attempt on the recreation, and it's still a pretty fun little game until it starts lagging. But due to the lag and the pretty simple and boring gameplay, I will rate this game a 3 out of 10. From the extremes of the near-infinite vastness of space, we shrink to the microscopic scale of bacterial battles. Let's give it up for our next game, Vaccine vs. Virus. Vaccines vs. Virus is a very straightforward local 2-player game where each side plays as a tank that represents either the vaccines or the viruses. Each time a side hits the other, they get a point. But despite this game being very straightforward, there's quite a few bugs and signs that this game is actually incomplete. For one, the game doesn't really end in a set amount of points, so it could either keep going for long or just stopping short. I honestly have no idea when the tanks just decide to die, it's completely random. There's also times when the tank can't move forward randomly and gets stuck for some reason until you wiggle your way out of it. I really like the psychedelic backgrounds of the games and the sounds are alright, but yeah, without varied gameplay elements and all of its bugs, I'll rate this simple 2-player game a 2 out of 10. Speaking of local 2-player games, here's another one. This time involving rabbit capybaras invading the world. Quite the random animal of choice if you ask me. Featuring Carpunccho 64. Like Vaccines vs. Virus, Carpunccho is a 2-player game. But unlike our previous game, this game is co-op instead of PvP, and could actually be played either locally or remotely using an IP address. Basically, you fight a bunch of rabbit capybaras that try to kill you. The player could have a fast shooting gun roll or a slow but hard hitting gun roll. Once you defeat a wave of them, you have the option to allocate stats to increase attack damage, attack speed, or movement speed. And yeah, that's pretty much the whole game. Very simple, but unfortunately, everything barely works, which brings us to the review. First of all, this game is open source, which is always great, but that doesn't really affect gameplay at all, so I won't include it as a key point that affects my rating. The latest build of the game had sounds, but no capybara spawned at all for some reason. So I downloaded a previous version of the game. This time there weren't any sounds at all, and there's debug text on the top left corner of the screen, but the capybaras actually spawned. I had to play 2 instances of the game at once, one at a time, because the game forced you to play with 2 players, even though I could have beaten the wave easily solo. Another thing I disliked was that there's no hit cooldown upon getting hit, so capybaras often instantly kill players when the player is cornered. The capybara AI is also very simple, and yet very brain dead. It often gets stuck in solid objects until you get near them and kill them yourself, which makes it a bit annoying when trying to kill them all to beat a wave. But worst of all, as if all that isn't bad enough, after beating a horde, you have the stat screen I mentioned earlier, but clicking on any of the stats and choosing it doesn't do anything at all. So I just got stuck at that screen before Alt F4ing the game to end it. So yeah, due to the game being extremely broken and incomplete, I'm going to rate it a 1.8 out of 10. Now we go from a broken shoot-'em-up co-op game to the game I am most excited to review this season. An obscure old-school MMORPG, give it up for Chimera RPG. One look at the itch.io page was all it took to hype me up like a kid opening up Christmas gifts. You just don't get games of this scale very often in the itch.io randomizer. But then, I tried downloading the game, and good lord, what an absolute pain in the ass. First of all, disclaimer alert, please download this game at your own risk. I had heaps of problems installing the program because Windows Defender was actually detecting viruses from it. I looked up the detected viruses online and they were either known false positives or are known to be relatively harmless, so I pushed on with it, but please don't do what I did, okay? Or if you really want to play the game, it's best to just play it on a virtual machine. Now, trying to get myself potential viruses in my PC took quite a bit of time, but what took the most time, about an hour and a half in fact, was actually installing the game into my system. It was so slow, I had time to review 3 other games before replaying it again. But after that whole ordeal was done, it's finally time to play the game. Upon further inspection, this is a recreation of an MMORPG known as Deco Online that was created in 2008 and sadly had its servers shut down ages ago. You start by selecting either the Milena or Rain faction. Milena has more physical classes like sword and bow users and resides in forest, while Rain consists of mostly magic-based classes residing in mountains. I chose Milena because Deltalies has always canonically been an archer. But sadly, I am forced to start as a warrior. The global chat was pretty barren, but seemed to have some activity going on with some bounty kills by random players here and there, which I suspect might be bots. Because every time I tried chatting in global chat, I was met with absolute silence. No one was advertising anything like items or guilds, which was pretty surreal. Anyway, we started by talking to this NPC known as Elena, who introduces the culture of Milena and basic controls. I see what they did for the name there, by the way. She also gives us an item that we have to give to an NPC known as Supreme Heart. Upon talking to her, we finally get things going. She teaches us even more basic controls like equipping weapons and throws us into a training room where we learn more about combat like combo moves and using more powerful skills that use up the combo gauge that fills up from using combo moves. We also learn other moves like breath control, that's some sort of meditation spell that restores HP and SP. After finishing the tutorial, I instantly swapped classes to an archer class and went on to play a bit of the main quest and killing random enemies in the overworld. I also discovered that there were minigames that could boost your experience if you played them well, which serves as a pretty cool mechanic and also a great way to break the monotony of grinding enemies. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the game, but sadly, as all games go, it doesn't come without its problems. Which brings us to the review. The graphics are dated but have their own little charm to it. The music is good, but sadly, the attacks didn't really have any sounds in them, which I honestly didn't really mind. The controls are a bit clunky, not the most intuitive, such as the camera being controlled by the arrow keys, but having the player being controlled by left click instead, which did take a bit of getting used to. The game also has a lot of advanced mechanics like enchanting and pets that are taught pretty well by a lot of the NPCs in the starting town, but cracks start to show as I talk with some of the NPCs breaking the fourth wall, stating that a particular feature isn't in the game yet, showing that the game is either not 100% complete or rushed in its development. As stated before, the minigame system is a nice little addition and icebreaker from the usual grind. But speaking of the usual grind, sadly, like most MMORPGs, grinding levels is extremely boring, but the problem is minimized with our last and saddest point of this review. I'd assume that due to a lack of people playing, I got insane experience boosts and leveled up in the game extremely quickly, probably to get me playing more. Even up to 10 levels after defeating a single enemy, which I'm sure isn't supposed to be the case. I also know that this isn't supposed to be the case because there wasn't a single point in the game where enemies hit me for more than 1 health of damage. Like, I get that I'm in an early area of the game, but it shouldn't be that easy, right? Maybe it'll get harder as the game goes on, but I was already an hour deep into it, so I had to move on to the next game afterwards. Hey everyone, Future Delta here. I played the game a little bit more just to go to more advanced areas of the game to see if enemies hit more than 1 damage. I went to an area with like enemies double my level. Some of their strong attacks did hit for more damage, like 5 or 10. But most of the time they only hit for 1, so yeah, I don't think I'm supposed to be this strong. But yeah, overall, I actually had fun with this wholesome MMORPG. I'll definitely give it another go in the future, as I'm sure I've only just scratched the surface of what it offered. But what's really sad to think about is that due to the lack of players and how hard this game tried to keep me in with its daily rewards and insane experience boosts, I have a sinking feeling that the servers in this game won't be able to sustain itself much longer. So with all that being said, I will rate this game a very respectable 7.7 out of 10. This is a fully fledged game that has a shit ton of content inside to uncover, and due to this, of course it gets a very well deserved hidden gem as well. Making it our 4th awarded game of the season. But yeah, it's time we move on to our next game of the season, Halfway Down. When I saw the itch.io page, the very first thing that caught my eye was Submission to Ludwig Jam? Wait a second, is it that Ludwig? The guy that recently went bald and went on a trip to Japan with Michael Reeves? Well, yes. What's extremely hilarious is that he had Michael Reeves as one of the judges in this game jam too. But that's not necessarily a good thing, guys, trust me. As much as I like watching his content, I fucking know the types of games this guy plays. The masochistic, difficult ass games he plays, like the difficult Pokemon hacks, Only Up, Jump King, Getting Over It, you know, games like that. So I'm scared to even think of what this jam is about. Think Getting Over It, Jump King, or Pogo Stop. A fought-in game is generally unforgiving, has no real checkpoints, and has a constant threat of losing huge chunks of progress. Great. Just great. Just as I fucking thought. Why did we go from the easiest chill MMORPG to this? Halfway Down is basically an extremely difficult, precise, and rage-inducing platformer game where you can slide and wall jump. You also have checkpoints between parts of the game in the form of roses. There are 2 modes in the game, Sheltered, where checkpoints stay with you no matter how many times you die, and then there's the intended mode of the game, the Vulnerable mode, where all checkpoints can only be used once, making it extremely difficult in later stages of the game. It's a very straightforward game overall, and so let's get on with the review. I think it's very apparent that the graphics are great. I'll give you a taste of what the sound design is like too. Yeah, it just goes without saying that the sound design is also very well done. The controls are very nice and satisfying, the rose checkpoint system is really cool. I'll be honest here, I have no complaints about the game besides the game being way too hard for my liking. But hey, that's just the fought-in genre for you guys, and also why I avoid these games like the plague. I guess if I had to nitpick, there isn't much variety in the scenery for the levels, but well, this is a game jam, so that's totally understandable. I also haven't made it more than halfway through the entire game in the first place, so I could still be wrong in that regard. One last thing is that this gameplay isn't too unique of a concept, it's just a really hard platformer game, nothing really special. With all that being said, I will rate Halfway Down solid 7.5 out of 10. And of course, due to this, it very easily gets our final award of the season. And with all 5 awards of the season given out, after reviewing a whopping 24 games, I can safely say that this is the end of Season 2 of the Obscure Game Faceoff. This season actually left more of a mark on me than the previous one. There are actually games that I want to play again, such as Halfway Down, Unsheltered Difficulty of course, no way I'm beating it on Vulnerable, and of course, Chimera RPG. And there are also games that I'll remember for a very long time to come, such as Foresty, On the Darkening Green, and of course, To Date a Demon. That begs the question, will I make a 3rd season for the Obscure Game Faceoff? I'll save the long answer for a future video, but for now, I'm just gonna say that it's very unlikely, or if it is going to be made, I'm really going to change the format. However, I will still review obscure games or maybe even other games that interest me. I'm also going to take a short break from uploading videos, maybe a week or 2 as I need to rest after 3 weeks of full-on editing. And well, I also need to brainstorm and think about the direction this channel is headed. But rest assured, I will be back, so stay tuned. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart for watching this season of the Obscure Game Faceoff. Take care and see you all in the next one.